Rich rancher slept with a widow on a bed at auction. When she took off her wig, he froze in shock. The twin sons of Kestrel's reach were low in the sky when the great auction began. Golden light spread across the wide stone plaza, shining on banners, alien traders, and rows of powerful creatures waiting to be sold. The air smelled of dust, metal, and strange spices from 100 different worlds. Voices in many languages filled the space, some sharp and loud, others soft and musical. At the center of it all stood Caleb Maris. He was a human rancher, tall and broad-shouldered, with sun-darkened skin and calm gray eyes. His boots were worn from years of walking across open land and guiding dangerous animals that no other species dared to touch. People on this world knew him well. Some respected him, some feared him, many envied him. Caleb had built one of the largest ranches on Kestrel's reach. He raised massive horned grazers from the volcanic plains and sleek, sharp-toothed runners from the glass deserts. Creatures that could crush metal or tear through stone followed his commands. To the alien traders, humans were supposed to be weak, soft, and emotional. Caleb enjoyed proving them wrong without ever raising his voice. Today, he had come to buy new stock for his ranch, but the day was about to become something much bigger. He stood near the front of the crowd, arms crossed, watching a floating platform where the auctioneer, a thin, blue-skinned being with glowing eyes, announced each new creature. Prices rose and fell in quick bursts of light from handheld bidding devices. Behind Caleb, a group of wealthy off-world traders whispered and laughed. "Look at him," one of them said in a sharp, clicking language, though their translator made it sound smooth and polite. "A human pretending to be a master of beasts." Another added, "They build fences and call it courage." Caleb heard them. Humans always heard more than others expected. He did not turn around. The auctioneer announced a rare desert drifter, a floating creature with wide fins and eyes like black glass. The bidding grew wild. Credits flashed in the air, cheers and angry shouts followed. Then the creature sold, and there was a short pause before the next item. That was when the traders behind Caleb decided to push him. One of them stepped forward. He was tall, thin, and wrapped in silver robes that shimmered like water. His face was narrow, his smile sharp. "Rancher," he said loud enough for others to hear. "We have a question for you." Caleb turned slowly. "Yes," he said. The trader spread his hands. "You humans speak so much about bravery and heart, but all we see is business and dirt. So tell us, are you truly bold or just loud?" A small crowd began to form. People loved a challenge. Caleb studied the trader's face. He had faced worse than words. But he could feel something in the air now, a tension like a coming storm. "What are you suggesting?" Caleb asked. The trader smiled wider. "A simple test, a bet." Whispers rippled through the crowd. "Name it," Caleb said. The trader pointed toward the far edge of the plaza. There, standing alone, was a woman dressed in dark clothing. Her posture was straight, but her shoulders seemed heavy, like she carried an invisible weight. A long veil covered her face, and a simple wig of gray hair rested on her head. She held a small bidding device in her hands but had not raised it once. "She is a widow," the trader said. "New to this world, quiet, alone. You spend the evening with her, not for money, not for trade, just because we dared you." Caleb felt a strange pull in his chest. He looked at the woman again. She did not look afraid. She did not look curious. She looked like she was waiting. "This is foolish," Caleb said. "Then refuse," the trader replied. "And we will know what humans truly are." The crowd leaned in. Caleb did not like being used. He did not like games that treated people like pieces on a board, but something about the woman's stillness caught him. Not weakness, not sadness. Calm, he took a breath. "I will speak with her," he said. "But I do not belong to your bet." The trader laughed. "Of course, speak. Walk, do what you like. The challenge stands." Caleb stepped away from the crowd and walked across the stone floor. The sounds of the auction faded behind him. All he could hear now was the soft hum of the sky shields above and his own footsteps. When he reached the woman, she lifted her head. Even through the veil, he could feel her eyes on him. "Hello," Caleb said. "My name is Caleb Maris." Her voice, when she spoke, was gentle and steady. "I know," she said. That surprised him. "Do you?" he asked. "Yes," she replied. "You are the one who calmed the storm heard last season. You stood in front of them when no one else would." Caleb frowned slightly. That story had not spread far beyond the ranchers. "You've been listening," he said. "I've been watching," she answered. There was something about the way she said it that made his skin prickle. "My name is Alara," she said. "Thank you for coming to speak with me." He gestured toward a bench near the edge of the plaza away from the noise. "Would you like to sit?" She nodded. They walked together. The crowd watched them go, whispers following like shadows. They sat. For a moment neither spoke. The suns dipped lower, painting the sky in orange and red. "You don't bid," Caleb said at last, "but you came to an auction." Alara folded her hands in her lap. "I wanted to see how people choose, what they fight for, what they value." "And what have you seen?" he asked. "Fear," she said softly. "Hope, greed, pride, kindness, all in the same place." Caleb smiled a little. "That sounds like most worlds I've been to." She tilted her head. "Humans are different." "How so?" "You move forward even when you know you might fall," she said. "Other species wait until the path is safe." Caleb thought of the first time he had walked into a pen with a 6-ton grazer that could crush him with one step. "Sometimes falling teaches you where to stand," he said. Alara seemed to consider that. As they talked, strange things began to happen. A nearby light flickered, then steadied. A nervous alien child dropped a drink, and before it hit the ground, a small service drone glided in and caught it, even though no one had called it. The air felt warmer, calmer, like the world itself was listening. Caleb did not notice at first. But slowly he became aware of the quiet pattern forming around them, like ripples in water spreading outward. "You're not from around here," he said carefully. "No," Alara replied. "Not just off-world," he added. "Off something else." She did not deny it. Instead, she looked up at the sky. "Do you ever wonder," she asked, "who decides when a world is ready for its future?" Caleb followed her gaze. The twin suns glowed, steady and ancient. "I figure the people living on it do," he said. Alara smiled beneath her veil. "That is a very human answer." A distant rumble rolled across the plains beyond the city walls. A dust storm, maybe, or something larger. Caleb stood. "Come," he said. "My ranch is not far. You should not be alone when the wind rises." She stood with him. "I would like that," she said. They began to walk toward the transport docks. Behind them, the auction resumed, but fewer people were paying attention now. Eyes followed the human rancher and the quiet widow as they left the golden light behind and stepped into the long shadows of the coming night. Caleb did not know it yet, but the path he had chosen would not just change his life. The transport lifted smoothly from the stone platform, its engines humming like a deep and steady breath. Lights from the auction plaza grew smaller as the city of Kestrel's reach fell away beneath them. Beyond the clear windows, the land opened into wide plains of dark grass and glowing rock, stretching toward distant hills and winding rivers that reflected the twin suns like long lines of fire. Caleb stood near the window, one hand resting on the rail. Alara sat quietly in one of the passenger seats, her hands folded again in her lap, her veil still hiding her face. The ride was calm, almost too calm. The pilot, a short and round alien with soft green skin, glanced back at them more than once, as if sensing something strange in the air. "You live far out," the pilot said, trying to make polite talk. "Far enough," Caleb replied, "keeps the noise away." Alara looked at the passing land. "It is beautiful," she said, "so open, so full of space to breathe." Caleb nodded. "That's why I stayed. This world is rough, but it gives you room to be who you are." The transport began to descend. Below them, Caleb's ranch came into view. Wide fields were divided by tall metal fences that glowed faintly with power. Massive shapes moved slowly across the land, some with long necks and heavy steps, others fast and low to the ground. Watchtowers stood at the edges, their lights scanning the darkening plains. The transport touched down near a wide landing pad. As they stepped out, the wind greeted them. It carried the smell of dust, grass, and warm stone. Somewhere in the distance, a deep call echoed from one of the creatures, low and slow like the sound of a giant breathing. Alara paused and looked around. "They listen to you," she said. Caleb raised an eyebrow. "Who does?" "The land," she replied. "The animals, the air, they move differently here." He shrugged. "I just try not to give them a reason to fight me." They walked toward the main building, a strong structure made of metal and stone. Warm light glowed from its windows. Inside, the ranch was quiet. Most of the workers had gone to rest, leaving only the night crew and the soft hum of machines. Caleb led Alara into a simple but clean sitting room. A long table stood in the center, and shelves along the walls held maps, tools, and old photos from Earth. A kettle rested on a small heater in the corner. "You can sit," Caleb said. "I'll make some tea." Alara took a seat and watched as he moved around the room. He filled 2 cups and brought them back. "Thank you," she said, taking the cup carefully. They sat across from each other. For a moment, the only sound was the wind outside and the soft clink of metal as one of the distant gates shifted. "You know a lot about me," Caleb said at last. Alara looked down into her cup. "I try to know about those I meet." "You knew about my parents," he said. "About the storm heard," she nodded. "My father used to say," Caleb continued, "that trust should be earned, not given." "I agree," Alara said. "Then help me earn mine," he replied. "Who are you really?" She lifted her head. Even through the veil, he could feel the weight of her gaze. "I am someone who watches," she said, "someone who listens when worlds speak." Caleb leaned back in his chair. "That sounds like a story." "Most truths do," she answered. Outside, a sudden alarm tone echoed softly across the ranch. Not loud, not urgent, just a signal. Caleb stood quickly and moved to the window. One of the long fences at the far field was flickering. The power line that ran along its base was glowing brighter than it should. "That's strange," he muttered. Before he could reach the door, the light steadied. The fence returned to normal. The alarm stopped. Alara stood behind him. "I did not mean to cause trouble," she said. Caleb turned slowly. "You didn't touch anything," he said. She tilted her head. "Sometimes things respond without being touched." He studied her face, still hidden. A quiet feeling settled in his chest. Not fear, something else. Curiosity, maybe, or recognition. "Come," he said. "I'll show you the fields." They stepped back outside. The sky was dark now, filled with stars. 2 moons hung low, one pale and one deep blue. They walked along a wide path between the fences. Huge grazers moved slowly nearby, their eyes glowing faintly in the night. When Alara came close, the animals shifted away, not in panic, but in gentle respect. Caleb noticed. "They don't do that for anyone," he said. Alara watched them. "They feel what you do not see." "And what is that?" he asked. She placed a hand lightly against her chest. "The quiet between things." They reached a small hill that looked over the entire ranch. Caleb often came here when he needed to think. They stood side by side. "Why me?" Caleb asked suddenly. Alara did not pretend not to understand. "Because you build instead of take," she said. "Because when others look at this world and see profit, you see home." He laughed softly. "That just sounds like being stubborn." "Sometimes they are the same," she replied. Another rumble rolled across the plains. This one was deeper than before. The ground trembled slightly. Caleb frowned. "That's not a storm." Lights began to flash along the far watchtowers. A shape moved in the distance, large and fast. "One of the runners," Caleb said. "It must have broken from the outer field." He started toward the path. Alara stepped forward. "Let me walk with you," he hesitated. "They can be dangerous." "So can humans," she said gently. They moved together, quick but steady. As they approached the open gate, the runner came into view. It was a sleek creature, tall as a transport, with long legs and a narrow head. Its eyes burned bright with fear. Caleb raised his hands slowly. "Easy," he called. The creature paced back and forth, trapped between fences and open land. Alara stepped forward, closer than Caleb would have dared. She lifted her hands, mirroring the creature's movement. Her veil fluttered in the wind. The runner slowed. Its breathing eased. Caleb watched in silent shock as the massive animal lowered its head and backed away, returning through the gate into the safety of the field. The lights dimmed. The alarms stopped. Alara turned back to him. "You did not need me," she said. "I've never seen anything like that," Caleb replied. She looked up at the stars. "There are many things you have not seen yet." They returned to the house. The night felt different now, heavier, fuller. Caleb offered her a room. She accepted. Before she closed the door, she paused. "Caleb," she said, "yes. This world stands at the edge of a great change," he frowned. "Every world does," she smiled beneath her veil. "Not like this one." The door closed softly. Caleb stood alone in the hall, listening to the wind and the distant breathing of his animals. Sleep did not come easily that night. He dreamed of stars moving like living things, of voices without sound, of a future that felt both bright and heavy in his hands. In the quiet room across the hall, Alara stood by the window. For a moment her hand rose toward her wig, her fingers hovering just above it. She did not remove it. Not yet. Outside, the land of kestrels' reach rested under the stars, unaware that it had just welcomed something far older and far greater than any storm, any beast, or any empire. Morning came slowly to the ranch. The twin suns rose behind thin clouds, painting the sky in soft gold and pale blue. Light moved across the fields, waking the great animals one by one. Deep calls and low sounds filled the air like a slow song. Caleb stood outside with a cup of warm tea in his hands. He had not slept much. His dreams still clung to him like fog, stars, voices. A feeling that something large was standing just behind the world waiting. He watched the main building. After a moment, the door opened. Alara stepped out. She still wore the dark clothing and the gray wig. The veil covered her face, but the morning light touched her like it knew her. The wind moved around her softly, not pushing, not pulling. "Good morning," Caleb said. "Good morning," she replied. They walked together toward the fields. Workers began to appear, some human, some alien. They greeted Caleb with nods and quiet words. When they noticed Alara, many paused. Some of the animals shifted again, stepping away from her path. "She makes them nervous," one worker whispered. "No," another said softly, "she makes them careful." Caleb led Alara to the far fence line where a group of young grazers fed on glowing grass. "You should see this part," he said. "They were born here, never knew another world." Alara watched them closely. "They are lucky." "Lucky?" Caleb asked. "This place is dangerous." "Danger does not always mean unkind," she said. They walked in silence for a while. Caleb finally spoke. "You said this world is near a great change." "Yes," Alara replied. "What kind of change?" he asked. "The kind that cannot be undone," she said. He stopped walking. "That's not very comforting." She turned to face him. "Comfort is not always honest." Caleb sighed. "You speak like someone who's been around a long time." "I have," she said. He studied her again, the way she stood, the way the air seemed to lean toward her. "Are you human?" he asked. Alara did not answer right away. "No," she said at last. Caleb did not move. His heart beat a little faster, but he did not feel afraid. "What are you?" he asked. She looked at the sky. "I am what my kind calls a listener," she said. "A guide, a watcher of paths." "Your kind has a name?" he asked. "Yes," she said, "but humans do not have words for it." Caleb rubbed the back of his neck. "That's not something you hear every day." She smiled beneath the veil. They were walking back toward the main building when the ground shook. This time it was not gentle. A deep rolling force moved through the earth. Birds and small creatures fled into the sky. The grazers raised their heads, eyes glowing brighter. Alarms began to sound across the ranch. Caleb turned and ran toward the watchtower. One of the guards was already there, looking at the horizon. "There's a line of ships," the guard said, "coming in fast." Caleb climbed the steps and looked through the scope. In the distance, dark shapes moved across the sky, not traders, not transport ships, military. His stomach tightened. "Whose are they?" Caleb asked. The guard shook his head. "No signal, no markings." Alara had followed him up the tower. She looked at the ships and nodded slowly. "It begins," she said. Caleb turned to her. "You knew this would happen." "Yes," she replied. "Then why didn't you warn me?" he demanded. She met his gaze. "Because warning changes the test." He stared at her. "Test." The first ship broke through the clouds. A deep voice echoed across the ranch, carried by loudspeakers. "People of Kestrel's Reach," the voice said. "This world is now under protective claim of the Coalition of Order. You will stand down and prepare for inspection." Workers gathered in the fields. Fear moved through them like a cold wind. Caleb clenched his fists. "Protective claim," he muttered. "That's just another word for taking." He turned to Alara. "Is this part of your test?" "Yes," she said. "Test of what?" he asked. "Of who you are when something greater than you tells you to kneel," she replied. The ships hovered above the land. Smaller craft began to descend. Caleb ran down the tower and into the fields. He climbed onto a high platform so everyone could see him. "Listen to me," he called. "No one runs, no one fights, not yet," the crowd quieted. "We stand together," he said. "We talk first, we show them this world is not empty." The first landing craft touched down near the outer gate. Soldiers stepped out. Tall, armored, their faces hidden behind dark helmets. Caleb walked forward, hands open. "I am Caleb Maris," he said. "This land is settled and working. You have no claim here." The lead soldier raised a device. "This world has been marked as a future resource site. Your presence is temporary." "Everything is temporary," Caleb said. "That doesn't make it yours." The soldier hesitated. Behind Caleb, the workers stood close together, humans and aliens side by side. Alara watched from the hill. She lifted one hand slightly. The wind shifted. The sky darkened just a little. The soldiers felt it. They looked around. Caleb felt it too, a pressure in the air like the world was holding its breath. "Who is she?" the soldier asked, pointing toward Alara. Caleb did not answer. Alara began to walk forward. Each step she took felt heavy and light at the same time. The ground did not shake, but it listened. She stopped a short distance from the soldiers. "You have come to take," she said, "but this world has already been chosen." "By who?" the soldier demanded. "By those who live on it," she replied. The soldier raised his weapon slightly. Caleb stepped in front of Alara. "Don't," he said. For a moment nothing moved. Then Alara reached up. Her fingers touched the edge of her wig. Caleb's heart pounded. Slowly she lifted it away. Light spilled out. Her head was no longer human. It shimmered like starlight on water. Shapes moved beneath the surface, soft and bright like thoughts made of light. Gasps rose from the crowd. The soldiers froze. Alara removed her veil. Her face was smooth and shifting, not fixed into one shape. Eyes like deep space looked out at them. "I am of the silent architects," she said. "We walk the paths of growing worlds." The air seemed to bend around her words. The lead soldier lowered his weapon. "Architects," he whispered. Alara turned slowly, looking at everyone. "Humanity is being watched," she said. "Not for its strength, not for its machines, but for its heart." Caleb felt his breath catch. "You chose me," he said softly. "Yes," she replied, "because you stand when others step back." The ships in the sky powered down their weapons. The soldiers stepped away from the gates. Alara lifted her hand again. "This world is not ready to be owned," she said. "It is ready to be trusted." The wind calmed. The sky brightened. The ships began to rise. One by one, they turned and vanished into the clouds. Silence fell over the ranch. Alara placed the wig back on her head and lowered the veil. The light faded. She looked at Caleb. "This was only the first moment," she said. "The greater test is still to come." Caleb swallowed. "What happens now?" he asked. "Now," she said, "the galaxy starts to notice you." She turned and walked back toward the hill. Caleb stood among his people, his world still standing but no longer hidden. He knew one thing for certain: nothing would ever be simple again. The ranch did not sleep that night. Lights stayed on across the fields. Workers moved in small groups, talking in low voices. The animals were restless, their deep calls echoing across the land like distant thunder. The sky felt closer, heavier, as if the stars themselves were leaning in to listen. Caleb stood on the hill where Alara had walked away. He could still see the place where the ships had hovered. The grass there was bent low, pressed flat by the weight of their engines. The world had been touched by something bigger than trade, bigger than politics. Bigger than fear. Behind him, footsteps approached. Alara stopped beside him. "You should rest," she said. Caleb laughed softly. "I don't think anyone on this world is resting tonight." She looked out over the ranch. "You held your people together, that matters." "I didn't do it alone," he said. "They stood because they chose to." Alara nodded. "Choice is what makes your kind rare." Caleb turned to her. "You said the greater test is still coming." "Yes," she replied. "When?" he asked. "Soon," she said, "and it will not come from the sky." As if on cue, a warning tone sounded from the far edge of the ranch, not the sharp alarm of ships, a deep, steady signal that meant something inside the land itself was moving. Caleb ran toward the watchtower again. Alara followed, her steps quiet but fast. A worker was already at the controls, eyes wide. "The ground sensors are lighting up," he said, "all across the eastern fields." Caleb looked at the map display. Red lights blinked in a wide line, moving closer. "What is it?" he asked. The worker swallowed. "Stampede." Caleb's heart dropped. The eastern fields held the storm grazers, massive creatures with thick hides and long, curved horns. They moved in herds of hundreds. When they ran, nothing stood in their way. "Why would they run?" Caleb asked. The worker shook his head. "No storm. No fire, no ships." Alara stared at the screen. "The world is being pushed," she said. Caleb did not have time to ask what that meant. "Open the north gates," he ordered. "Clear the river path, get everyone off the low ground." Workers scattered, moving fast. Caleb grabbed a transmitter and ran for his transport. Alara climbed in beside him without being asked. The vehicle lifted and raced toward the eastern fields. In the distance, the ground shook. A low, rising sound rolled across the plains like the roar of a giant ocean. They crested a hill and saw them. The storm grazers were running. Hundreds of massive bodies moved as one, dust rising in thick clouds around their feet. Their eyes glowed bright with fear. Their horns cut through the air like blades. "They're heading straight for the river town," Caleb said. That town held workers' families, children, elders. "We can't stop them," he muttered. "Not like this." Alara placed a hand on the dashboard. "You can," she said, "but not alone." Caleb turned to her. Then help me. She nodded. They landed near the front of the herd. The ground trembled so hard Caleb could feel it in his bones. He stepped out, lifting his transmitter. North gate's open, he shouted into it. Signal flares now. Bright lights burst into the sky in the distance, marking a new path. The herd did not slow. Caleb ran forward, standing in front of the moving wall of flesh and horn. Caleb, someone shouted from behind. He raised both arms. Easy, he called. Easy. The lead grazer lowered its head, its massive horns pointed straight at him. Alara stepped beside him. She lifted her hands. The air changed. Not with light this time, with feeling. A deep calm spread outward like still water after a storm. The dust in the air settled slightly. The ground stopped shaking as hard. The lead grazer slowed, then another, then another. The herd began to shift, not stopping, but turning, following the new path marked by the flares. Caleb's legs shook, but he did not move. The herd thundered past them, close enough that he could feel the heat of their bodies, hear their breathing like wind through stone. When the last one passed, Caleb dropped to one knee, breathing hard. Alara stood steady. Behind them, workers and guards stared in silence. Caleb looked up at her. You felt them, didn't you? Yes, she said. Their fear, their need to move, they were not running from something. Then what? He asked. She looked toward the distant hills. They were running toward safety, she said. From something you cannot yet see? That night, no one slept at all. The next day, ships began to arrive, not warships, not traders, observers. Small, strange crafts from many species hovered at the edges of the ranch. Beings watched from behind shields and screens. They did not land, they did not speak, they watched. Caleb stood in the center of it all, arms crossed, staring up at the sky. They're judging us, he said. Yes, Alara replied. What do they want to see? He asked. She looked at the workers repairing fences, at humans and aliens sharing tools, at children carrying water to tired guards. They want to see what you do when no one is forcing you, she said. A fire broke out in the southern fields that afternoon. A lightning strike from a clear sky. Workers rushed to contain it. Caleb ran with them, so did Alara. They formed lines, passing water, pulling burning grass away, working until their hands were raw and their faces dark with smoke. No one ordered them. No one paid them. They worked because the land was theirs. The observers in the sky did not move. That night, a group of traders arrived, offering protection for a price. Caleb refused. We protect our own, he said. Some workers worried, some argued, but in the end, they stood with him. Alara watched, silent. On the third day, a sickness spread among the smaller grazers, a strange weakness that made them collapse. Caleb called every healer he knew. Humans and aliens worked side by side, sharing knowledge, trying everything. Alara knelt among the animals, placing her hands gently on their heads. She did not heal them with light or power. She listened. And then she spoke quietly to the healers, guiding them toward a cure they had almost missed. The animals recovered. The observers in the sky shifted, their ships forming new patterns. Caleb felt the weight of it all pressing down on him. They're pushing us, he said to Alara one evening. Crisis after crisis. Yes, she replied. How much is enough? He asked. Alara looked at him, really looked at him. That is what they are trying to learn, she said. That night the sky changed. Stars dimmed. The air grew heavy. A presence filled the world, not in ships, not in sound, but in feeling. Like the ranch itself had been placed inside a vast, unseen hand. Workers fell silent. Animals lowered their heads. Caleb stepped forward into the open field. Alara joined him. The air rippled. A shape began to form above the ground, not solid, not light. A pattern of space itself bending into a tall, wide figure. A voice spoke, not loud, not soft, everywhere. Humanity, it said, you stand at a door. Caleb swallowed. We didn't ask for this, he said. No species does, the voice replied, but all are tested. Alara bowed her head slightly. You have watched, she said. Now you must decide. The presence shifted. You build, the voice said. You protect, you choose each other over comfort, over safety, over power. Caleb felt his chest tighten. You are not perfect, the voice continued. You are not gentle, you are not wise. Caleb almost laughed. But you are unyielding, the voice said. You move forward. Silence stretched across the fields. The presence began to fade. Tomorrow, it said, you will hear our answer. The stars brightened again. The weight lifted. People slowly began to breathe. Caleb turned to Alara. Tomorrow, he said. Yes, she replied. He looked out at his ranch, his people, his world. Whatever came next, he knew one thing: morning arrived like a held breath finally released. The twin suns rose slowly over Kestrel's reach, their light soft and pale, touching the land as if asking permission. The ranch was quiet in a way Caleb had never felt before, not empty. Not afraid, waiting. Workers stood in small groups across the fields, humans and aliens together. Some held tools, some held their children close. The animals were calm, standing still with their heads low, as if they also knew this day mattered. Caleb stood at the center of the open field where the presence had appeared the night before, his boots pressed into the cool ground. Alara stood beside him, her dark clothing moving gently in the morning wind. "Do you know what they will say?" Caleb asked. Alara shook her head. "Even my kind does not always know the answer before it is spoken." Caleb exhaled slowly. "That's not comforting," she smiled beneath her veil. "It is honest." The air shifted, not with sound, not with light, with feeling. The space above the field bent again like the world itself was folding. The same tall, wide shape formed in the air, made of moving patterns and deep shadows like a doorway filled with stars. Everyone went silent. The voice returned, calm, steady, everywhere. "You have been seen," it said. Caleb felt his heart pound, but he did not step back. "You have been measured," the voice continued. "Not by your strength, not by your reach across the stars, but by what you do when no one commands you." The shape shifted, showing faint images within it. Workers passing water during the fire, healers kneeling beside sick animals, guards standing through the night without being asked. "You choose to stand," the voice said. "You choose to build. You choose to protect those who are not your own." Caleb swallowed. "These choices are rare," the voice said, "and dangerous." The crowd shifted, uneasy. "Because a species that will not bend," the voice continued, "cannot be easily ruled." Alara lowered her head slightly. The voice turned, its attention focusing on Caleb. "Human," it said, "you were chosen because you are not great." Caleb blinked. "That's good to know." A soft ripple passed through the field, not laughter, something close to it. "You are not a leader of worlds," the voice said. "You are not a builder of empires, you are a keeper of land and life." Caleb felt a strange warmth in his chest. "And yet," the voice continued, "your kind spreads faster than any before, learns faster, bonds faster, fights harder, cares deeper." The shape grew brighter. "Many in the galaxy fear this," it said. "They wish to cage you, slow you, shape you." Caleb clenched his fists. "But we do not," the voice said. The air seemed to open. "Humanity will not be guided," the voice said. "You will not be contained." A murmur moved through the crowd. "You will be challenged," the voice continued. "You will be tested, you will be opposed." Caleb lifted his head. "But you will also be welcomed," the voice said, "as partners, as builders, as the wild heart of a growing galaxy." Alara closed her eyes, the voice softened. "We name you," it said, "uncontainable but worthy." The shape began to fade. "This world," the voice said, "will stand as a mark, a place where humanity was not claimed but recognized." The presence vanished. The sky returned to normal. The wind moved again. For a long moment no one spoke. Then a child laughed, not loud, not proud, just happy. The sound broke the stillness. People began to breathe again, to move, to talk. Some cried, some smiled. Some simply stood and looked at the sky like they were seeing it for the first time. Caleb turned to Alara. "It's over," he said. She nodded. "For now." He studied her. "What happens to you?" She looked out across the fields. "My kind will step back," she said. "We do not walk beside those who can walk on their own." Caleb felt a strange tightness in his chest. "You're leaving," he said. "Yes," she replied. He nodded slowly. "Figures." They walked together toward the hill where they had first stood side by side. The ranch was already changing. Ships in the distance were turning away. Observers were leaving. The sky was clearing. "You never really told me why you chose me," Caleb said. Alara stopped. "You were kind to a world that could not speak," she said. "You listened to land, to animals, to people who did not look like you. My kind values that more than power." He scratched his head. "I just didn't want things to break," she smiled. "That is how most builders begin." They reached the top of the hill. Alara turned to face him. "There will be others like me," she said. "Not watchers, not guides, but friends, rivals, neighbors." Caleb chuckled. "The galaxy just got a lot smaller." "And a lot louder," she added. A soft glow appeared behind her, not bright, not sharp, a doorway made of light and shadow. "This is where I step off your path," she said. Caleb hesitated. "Will I see you again?" Alara thought for a moment. "Your kind has a way of showing up where it is least expected," she said. "So yes, probably." He laughed. She reached up and removed her veil. This time she did not hide. Her face shimmered like before, soft and shifting, eyes deep and bright like distant stars. "You did well, Caleb Maris," she said. He nodded. "So did you?" She stepped backward into the light. The doorway closed without a sound. Caleb stood alone on the hill. Below him, the ranch moved again. People returned to work. Animals grazed. Life continued. But everything felt bigger now. That evening, a message arrived from a nearby system, then another, then another. Humans were being invited, not as workers, not as soldiers, as partners. Caleb sat at his long table, reading the messages while the sun set. A worker knocked on the door. "Sir," she said, "they're asking what we want." Caleb leaned back in his chair. "What we want," he repeated. He thought of fences built instead of walls, of hands reaching out instead of pointing weapons, of worlds that could become homes instead of prizes. He stood. "Tell them," he said, "we want to build." The message went out. Across the stars, humanity's answer traveled, not as a threat, not as a promise of power, but as an invitation. That night, Caleb walked the fields one last time before sleep. The animals moved calmly. The wind was gentle. The sky was wide and full of stars that no longer felt distant. He stopped on the hill and looked out at his world, a small world, a quiet world. The place where humanity had been seen for what it truly was. Not conquerors, not rulers, but something far harder to stop. People who would walk into the unknown not to own it, but to make it home. Caleb smiled, turned, and headed back toward the warm light of the ranch, ready for a future that was finally, truly wide open.